this person is the top tier of what I'm looking for, even though this person has no professional footprint outside of a document that we call a resume. It's unreasonable, and I'm sorry, they need to understand that and adapt.
Hey, Scott, how's it going?
I'm alive. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So, what are we talking about today?
Today, let's talk about interviewing. And now we've graduated to another level, Odie. You know, a lot of people, especially in this day and age, they're interested in, how to prepare for an interview when they're being interviewed.
Mm.
We graduated to another level. It's what to consider when interviewing candidates and what's reasonable and what could be deemed unreasonable. Is there such thing as unreasonable?
Oh, yeah,
Let's
definitely.
discuss. Let's discuss it.
Okay. So, let's start with you. What criteria do you use to decide when selecting candidates? Depend. Let's pick a hypothetical role. Let's pick, say, uh, software engineering position, for example.
If it's a senior role of anything, maybe with the exception of a regulated industry, maybe an exception, I should be able to Google your name and see social proof that how you earn your living is the search results of your name. So
The Okay. Go ahead.
if you are applying to be a senior developer or architect or director of engineering, it's not unreasonable for me to have the expectation that when I Google your name, the search results are going to scream that that's what you do.
Okay. But the role in question, does it require um does it require any form of, you know, online participation, like posting online or anything like that? Does it require that someone has an online presence, the role itself, right? I'm saying
When
on
I'm doing it, yes. Because okay, it's
Mhm.
what are you looking for? Are you looking for someone that is top tier and they demonstrate that this is what they care about? This is their lifestyle. This is not a 9 to 5 and then I'm done. I'm returning back to wife and kids. No, this is something that they care about and that they're passionate about. And when you research them, it has been demonstrated by them that this is something that they want to get better at and they want to help others because of the skill set that they've been exploring or improving. Yes.
I would push back a little bit, right? I would say that there's a little bit of, should I say, survivorship bias that you have that you don't see, because because you see it from the perspective of, if you are looking for you, what traits would you look for, right? If you are looking for yourself as a software engineer.
Absolutely.
But that's not totally true, right? Because, for example, I can show you very, very senior engineers who aren't really the social type. In fact, one thing engineers are known for is being antisocial, right? Not being able to talk in cocktail parties, or,
What does that have to do with answering questions on Q&A? What does that have to do with giving back?
I will explain.
Okay.
So if someone is not comfortable with spotlight of any form, if somebody is a very private person, the chances that you're going to see anything on them when you Google them is almost zero, right? Whereas such people can also be prolific software engineers. I can give you an example. There are many people on GitHub who have excellent GitHub profiles, for example. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole, is your GitHub a proof of your social aid, blah, blah. That's another kind of warmth in and of itself. But I'm just saying, given that whole thing, right? There are people who are open source developers, right? They manage open source software. They, they are more focused on the technical aspects, right, of software engineering. Those people don't have blog posts all over the place. Those people don't have, you know, articles that were written by them, videos that were done by them, or anything like that. And those people can also be very excellent software engineers. So
Okay.
you are essentially discriminating against those people,
No, I'm
right?
not discriminating. I'm challenging them. This is the thing. It is
Okay.
unreasonable for you to be a beast at what you do and have the expectation that I'm going to discover you and that I'm going to have the time to examine you when you're giving me nothing else but a resume. That's all I have. I'm sorry. The conditions, this market is too competitive for me to go through a whole bunch of resumes, Google your name, see absolutely nothing, and still decide that, you know what, even though resumes are antiquated, I still want to talk to this person and hopefully within a hour round or maybe 2 or 3 rounds, this person is the top tier of what I'm looking for, even though this person has no professional footprint outside of a document that we call a resume. It's unreasonable, and I'm sorry. They need to understand that and adapt to these
I
conditions or
disagree.
today's conditions.
I disagree. And let
Okay,
me tell you
let's
why I
go.
disagree. I disagree because that's the whole point of having interviews in the first place, right? It's not enough to have social proof, because let me tell you, social proof can be hacked, if you will. It can be hacked, right? Social proof can
Example.
also,
Example. Who? I want to see an example of this. Who can I Google that has social proof that they're not who they're writing to claim to be? I'll go.
they may not be as technical as they claim to be. Yes,
Okay.
that's totally hackable, right? Like, for example, if I know very little about like .NET, right, or MVVM or stuff like that, all I just need to do is watch a few talks, attend a few conferences, write a few blog posts. It doesn't mean I know the technology, right? It just means that I know. It just means that it just means that there are, people know that I'm into this thing, right? Take, for example, when we started learning F sharp, right? I could make the argument that right now I'm a lot less involved in the F sharp community than I was when I first started. But I know way more about F sharp now than I knew back then, right? So back
Hmm.
then I knew just a little bit. I had read the book Expert F sharp, but I'd never implemented anything with F sharp, right? I even wrote like very nice blog posts on it. But you can't you can't use that as a proxy for how good I am with F sharp. That's the whole point of having, like, what do they call it? Interviews, right? Interviews where you give them real tasks, real challenges, and then you see how they perform on those challenges. Because let me tell you something, people can talk a very big game about software engineering. I have seen very impressive resumes before, and asking them like even basic questions, you see that they are mixing up simple concepts, right? So yeah, I get why it's a very strong signal, but like every signal, you don't use just that signal to decide. The same way you don't use just your resume to decide whether somebody, is a good candidate or not, right? Or you don't
Dude,
use based on what they've written without actually having to talk to them.
dude, if I need to get a kidney replaced, you best believe that if I have the means or the resources, I am going to research surgeons, and whichever surgeon has the most social proof, has conference talks, has published articles or journals, that person is going to be in the lead if I have the funds to hire that person. That is the reality of someone that is seriously trying to get help and they don't have the budget nor the time to hire and fire, hire and fire. Social proof is a thing. And Odie, no, 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 no. Let's go back. So you brought up F sharp, and you're saying how you were gun ho when you were first learning it, but you graduated to a level where that's not your highest priority right now. But you know what the difference is between you today versus you back then? You still have social proof. It's even if you didn't start recording YouTube videos or giving conference talks on contributing to the F sharp compiler, or I don't know, helping people with YouTube. The fact that you already made that deposit or investment early on, it doesn't go away. It's still an artifact. I could
Uh,
still Google your
yeah.
name if you submitted a resume to whatever organization that I work at and say, we got to bring them in, right? It's an investment, and we can agree to disagree. It is very important.
Okay, that's a fair point, and I will concede that point. Um, but I also know, and this is who I am fighting for, right? I'm fighting for a few of my friends who are just as technical as I am, just as good as I am, if not better in some things, but are very, very shy of the spotlight. And they don't want anything that is like tied to them. In fact, I haven't have a very close friend of mine who his MO is just creating libraries. He has lots of libraries to do all kinds of things that he puts up on GitHub. But you will never see a blog post from him. You will never see you will never see any of those things from him. So for him, his only social proof here is just his GitHub, and that's it. Nothing else.
Okay, and that's good. That gives me something. He has something out there. What I'm saying is, you Google someone's name based on the profession or practice that you need help with, and it's nothing. It's a void. That's what I'm saying.
I see your
Their
point. I see your
resume screams that they're a director and they made this. They help whatever organization, I don't know, get so much money, this, that, and the other, and they can name drop and they can do a whole bunch of other things. But when you research them, it's a void. There is nothing there. You
mm,
can't possibly be a leader, be an industry leader, or be up and coming. Um, and then like when I try to research you, nothing shows up. That's an oxymoron. That is a paradox.
but is it a paradox though? Right? Think about it very well. Just
I've done a
just
lot of thinking about it. Yes.
just hear me out, right? Imagine you work with the US military, for example, right?
Okay.
And you are one of the top engineers with the US military, right? You build a lot of their internal systems, you use whatever technologies.
I said
Are you
highly regulated, but yes,
okay?
that was one
Okay,
of the
so
constraints
that
I
was
placed.
okay, fine. But still, do you see where I'm getting to with this? Is that I have also seen many developers who have 5, 10, 15 years of experience. And because all the projects they've worked on are like internal projects, right? They have nothing tangible in their resume. Like they could put that, oh, we worked on this system, but because the system is not a front-facing system, there is no evidence, right? It's just their word against whoever's word, right? Like there's nothing to show that okay, this guy has spent a lot of his career on something like this, and this is how it could be useful to our own organizations, right?
I see what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but it's no. Okay? You No, hear me out.
No, I get you.
No,
I
no, no,
get
I
you.
don't think you do. So I'm gonna
Okay.
say it a different type of way. Are you really emphasizing that you're ready to grow if you are not publicly putting yourself out there to get feedback? Okay? I'm going to pause and then I'm going to elaborate.
Okay.
Within the, let's say, within the science community, all right, people that write research journals or whatever the verbiage is,
Mm,
what happens? They put it out there, right? Because, well, we evolve our understanding of science. We evolve our understanding of how to build better. or higher quality structures. That's what we do, right? We're humans. This is what separates us from other creatures. What happens is it gets peer reviewed. People outside of the author are incentivized to poke holes in it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the fantastic or fascinating thing about that is everybody has the opportunity to learn. Everybody has the opportunity to realize what conditions this is not applicable in, right? Long story short, or to summarize, for people that don't want to be in the spotlight, that's fine. I think I understand that, but they're also limiting themselves. And is that someone that you want to select for an organization or for a vision that you want to develop? And
Mm,
we're
I
and
see.
we're thinking strategically. If you're not opening up yourself for people to poke holes in your ideas or what you have built that's not within a highly regulated industry, which means that you have permission to put it out there and people don't get hurt, then I would say that, like, what type of person are you really seeking? They don't have a growth mindset. They're, again, they're showing that as smart as they are, they want to know what they know. That's what it portrays, because they're not putting it out there for other people to challenge it.
Hmm. So I will say that I agree with you, obviously, because right from the word go, I've also shared that mindset as well. And I, like you said, I think it's important that, software engineers who have experience take up that task by themselves, like take up that challenge to put themselves out there, to have some kind of evidence that, you know, what you're talking about, right? So, like I said earlier, have libraries that you've written that do specific things, like have applications you've built, right? Have blog posts you've written on certain concepts, even if it's, do you know that even if it's answering Stack Overflow questions, right? That is also social proof in a way. Yeah.
Asking Stack Overflow questions. Look at how many points I have. Two-thirds of that is from asking questions about
True,
WPF and F sharp and
true,
Xamarin.
true, true. So yeah, it's really important. But I'm saying this from the perspective of as an employer who wants the very best people, right? I I also see how you could be missing out on a latent talent pool if you're only looking for social proof, like if you require social proof in order to pick software engineers. Personally, my uh MO, like if I was starting a company tomorrow, my MO would be look for as many developers as you can. Those with social proof, fine. Those without social proof but with good resumes, fine. Bring them all together, talk to all of them, right? You'll be able to get a lot just by having conversations. And then maybe the next level is you give all of them a challenge, right? Say, we need you to build this based on this specs, and let them go and see how it goes. So, on one hand, right, you will find out that there are a lot of very good people who are like I said earlier, who aren't online and everything. But my experience, and this is why I also agree with you as well, my experience is that those who have social proof more often than not have so much passion that it overrides whatever technical ability they have, right? So you find out that those people may just be, maybe they are slightly less technical than those who don't have social proof, but on the long run, those developers are the ones that are, that are more likely to want to learn new things, are more likely to develop new skills, and so on and so forth. The people that tend to fall into the first category are the people we call, I can't remember, we used to have a
Dark matter
saying.
developers.
Yeah, dark matter developers, exactly. But even worse than that is you have developers who have 20 years of experience, but they've been building one thing for 20 years, right? So is it really 20 years experience? You get what I mean?
Mhm.
Like those people who have social proof tend to have more varied experience than those who don't, right? Those who don't are usually very narrow focused on one particular technology or one particular set of technologies and so on and so forth.
And here's, I'm about to drop a revelation. You ready for this revelation bombshell?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see.
Get up close to the camera. You put yourself out there, you start attracting, right?
Yeah,
So you put yourself out there, people start responding, and different people have different backgrounds. Different people see things different ways, and now you're able to attract a spectrum of perspectives for what you decided to put out there. And now it's an opportunity for you to be prepared for rebuttals because now you're more knowledgeable about the edge cases that other people have because they've seen what you have and it works 70, 80% of the time. Now not only are you more educated, but now you're attracting people that are helping you understand other, cases, but also you're attracting a professional network of people because you're putting yourself out there. When you attract people, you open up channels to learn more. Okay. I
true.
opened up a channel by starting up a YouTube video, posting it publicly, discovering you on Twitter. I think I reached out to you and you said, yeah, what the heck? But then, 5 years down the road, you're like, Scott, why are you using a async construct in F sharp? And then you're awaiting that as a task. Why don't you just use a task construct instead of an async in F sharp? Right? I I never
Yeah.
knew. How could I, right? But the fact that I had to put myself out there in which the only way that I met you, and at the time you were in continental Africa, specifically Lagos, I had to publish something. You had to
Mm,
publish something. That's how we discovered, and that's how we exchange ideas. And as humans, we exchange ideas, we evolve. But you can only evolve when you share information amongst one
mm.
another. So
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. And truth of the matter is, no matter how good you are as a developer, you could be, you know, Linus Torvalds for all we care, right? If you don't reach out, right? How are the jobs that you want going to find you, right? How are they going to know you? Because you're going to lose every time to someone who has less experience but more exposure every single time, right? So you're right in the sense that putting yourself out there is important because, you know, like in my own career, right? There are many times where I apply to companies and someone in the company that is looking through my resume either knows me on Twitter, has read my articles, or has some kind of previous contact with me before, right? That automatically just gives me a leg up across, above other candidates who probably are just as, as just as technical as myself, but don't have any social proof that anybody can go off of. Because you're right, hiring people is a risk, right? You could hire a superstar developer who doesn't say anything, but you could also hire a total dud, right? Someone who isn't really who doesn't really fit into your company, or who isn't as technical as you expect him to be, and so on and so forth. So every organization is taking that risk, and the more parameters they have, right, the more likely they are to take a calculated risk picking you versus picking other candidates. So you're absolutely right. It's just I don't know whether I feel for I feel for the developers who really don't like being on the spotlight, who really don't like putting themselves out there, who just like to study on their own, get information, but they aren't really bold enough. In fact, there's even one of my other friends as well who his case is even worse because he's not the type that likes to speak out. Even when you're talking in person, right? Even when we're having meetings, developer meetings and stuff like that, he isn't the outspoken type, right? He always likes to keep his opinions to himself and all this kind of stuff, right? Someone like him will find it very difficult putting anything online because putting anything online means it's open to scrutiny, which, like you said, is actually a good thing. But you can see how someone who isn't that outgoing, right, would really not want to do that. So, yeah, you're right. But it's just unfortunate that, many developers aren't don't have any social proof whatsoever. Because maybe we should use this to transition over to the conversation we had about like GitHub, where someone went on Twitter and he was like a recruiter or something, and he said, if I go to your GitHub profile and I don't see any activity on your GitHub page, then I'm not even calling you for an interview.
Yeah, okay. Even I don't agree with that. To me, like to me, if you deposited even 5 years ago, like stuff out there, and now you moved on because I mean, you don't have to still be a developer working on your side project. You can evolve to doing other things that are at a higher level that requires more politics, right? So yeah,
Mhm.
even I agree with that. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, no, like, and people came out on social media and were like really bashing the guy and everything. And
Uh,
truth is, that's the extreme of the arguments we're having right now, right? Because GitHub is just one company, and it's not everyone who even uses GitHub to begin with. Some people use Visual Studio, Azure DevOps, or GitLab, and so on and so forth. So using that one metric for that one company in that one scenario to determine, because the person could also make the argument as well that how can you be a developer without a GitHub profile, without open source projects on GitHub, right? Truth is, most of the really good developers have GitHub profiles, have vibrant, GitHub pages, but it's not all of them. And I don't know, it just felt wrong to me. And
yeah,
yeah, he was obviously flamed for it. So
yeah. So I think we went deep on that aspect of making the decision on which candidates you're going to interview. What's another aspect? What's another consideration?
yeah, so another consideration is ability to articulate thoughts, right? Right, ability to have conversations, articulate technical terms. This is something that I
I
saw
struggle
quite.
with.
Yeah, no, but I saw it quite a bit, right? So you have you ask, as an interviewer, you ask a very simple question: how does XYZ work? And then instead of the person to go straight to the point and answer the question, they go on this tangent and they are discussing all kinds of edge cases and things that are not relevant to precisely what was asked, right? What tends to happen is that that person says a lot of nothing and just eats up the entire interview time period. And in the end, as an interviewer, like, I go back, not just because it's usually not a single person interviewing. I go back with the fellow interviewer and was like, what did this guy, like, what did he talk about? Or what did, how does it make sense? Like, we don't know, right? Because the person went off on tangents. And one thing that I noticed, right, even when I was working at my previous companies, was that they won't interrupt you, right? Because their job is not to interrupt you. Their job is to just assess you. So when they ask you a question and you go off on this rigmarolling tangent, they won't interrupt you. And if you are not cognizant enough to catch yourself and bring yourself to track, or to use concise language, specific language, right? You may end up wondering why you are not selected, not realizing that your ability to have conversations, your ability to pass technical information is just where you are lacking.
Yeah, you know, Odie,
Mm.
about probably about maybe 8 years ago, I had this revelation, and I didn't like 98% of the time my revelations come from something that I've heard from another brilliant person, but this one came from me. So I guess I'm brilliant. I guess I'm brilliant now.
Yeah.
And this is related, and maybe we can talk about it. My strategy for earning a lifestyle is it's like two stages to it, right? For whatever money that I want to graduate to making, the first stage is to get to the interview table for that job that pays that type of money that I want, right?
Mm.
That's the first objective. And then it's okay if I don't get the job because it's probably going to I'm probably going to hit that interview table for that type of money, maybe up to like 5 or 6 times before I finally unlock that achievement, right? Which is stage two, you finally get hired, right? And what all this means is, and I think it's loosely coupled to what we're talking about, is you do it until you become it, right? And
Mm,
so when when I'm uh let's say applying for a job, or I'm broadcasting my interest in a certain discipline of a profession that I'm practicing, I usually, I won't say usually, but there's times where I'm not professionally employed to do that. And what I'm doing is really, if I were employed, a pay grade or two above me.
mm.
But what I've learned is if you keep doing it, it becomes a temperament, and you extend that temperament, it becomes a personality, etc. And that's how I've climbed the ranks. And I kind of have the expectation that, well, maybe I don't, but I would kind of, I'm curious if you had that type of revelation, or if you had something else
No, no,
for when you graduate to different levels.
absolutely, absolutely. Like, I can't remember who said it. What it was like, if you want something, you have to become the person that if you want something, you have to become the person that can do that thing, right? So if you wanted to make a senior architect salary, then you have to become that person. You have to become that senior architect. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by asking yourself, what will this person do, right, in this particular situation? How does this person operate? And then pretend to be that person, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to take on that persona. And then with enough practice of that particular persona, you will become that person, because life is like I wanted to use machine learning terms, but I'm going to avoid doing that. But just think of life as a maze, right? And you know what direction you want to head into, but you don't know how you're going to get there, right? All you're left with is direct decisions right now. Decision to either move left or move right. Now, if I want to go towards the right, right, I don't need to know about the specifics of the decisions I'm making. All I just need to know is that every time I am faced with a decision of whether to move left or to move right, I pick the right option. Now, all those micro decisions are, are tuning you towards your goal, right? So, say for example, now if I wanted to become a fitness influencer, right? If I wanted to become muscular and all that stuff, then I need to start thinking like that person. What would that person do? Okay, when I wake up in the morning, instead of eating my food, I may decide to buy protein shake and be drinking protein shake in the morning, even without doing any exercise whatsoever, right? Because
Hmm.
that's what a, a fitness influencer would do, right? They wake up in the
Everybody wants to
morning.
be a beast until it's time to do what beasts do.
I know, right? But my point is that adopting that person's lifestyle, or what I perceive as that person's lifestyle, right, already puts me in the path, right? Like, even if it means just going to the gym and just showing up, sitting down there for 30 minutes and going back home. If you do that, enough, you become the person that goes to the gym regularly. And then, it spirals from there. The same
Yeah,
thing
it
applies to
builds off of
us.
that.
It builds
Yeah.
off that. Same thing with us, right? You and I, when we first started, we probably didn't know much about, like, languages, web design, and all those kind of things. But we became the people that would go online and look for those specific things. And it's even worse now in the age of algorithms, where now once you search for something, it keeps recommending that thing to you. You start seeing new videos on that topic. You start, and the more you hone in on that character, the more you become that person, right? And I think that's the secret, and that secret really applies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I kind of derailed this because I went
yeah, sure.
into someone that is seeking the interview, right? The last couple of minutes
Mm,
versus the original intent of this episode is when you are the interviewer. You remember one of the core tenets of this tech conception
yeah,
is what it wants to focus on. What, what's the primary focus?
business, getting
Business.
the yeah.
So, with that said, Here's something that when I'm interviewing, I try to always ask this question, right? Now, this one is kind of tailored towards software development and not some arbitrary uh, industry.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite interview question is, how do you manage the software development efforts? And then I have
Interesting.
and then I have another question that maybe we could go into later is I have them design some system that's analogous to some popular system that's already out there, whether it's YouTube or Twitter, something a very popular platform. When I'm conducting an interview, I have the candidate uh, design the system, but the business part is still important for both of these questions that I'm asking.
Mm.
So let's go to the latter part of when I have them design a system. One of the things that is probably unreasonable slash unfair that I'm looking for is, and this is contrary to a startup, right? Because I mean, usually my interviews are for the enterprise, but I want to see them articulate the mapping of the system that they are designing to how it's going to satisfy business objectives. Okay. With this system, how does this map to profit? How does this map to managing expenses? How does this map to residual income? What what business objectives are being encouraged or checked off with this design? And I'm not going to tell them that, but I'm once they have the system, I'm going to start planning all these considerations about how it maps to the business. Eh,
Because I'm not sure I follow what you're saying, right? So, can you give me like an example, right?
sure.
Let's pick YouTube. Say, for example, you want to compete with YouTube as a
Let's
business, and you
let's
are,
pick YouTube. Here we go. You ready?
yeah, yeah,
All
I'm
right.
ready.
So I say
Okay.
design me a YouTube platform. All right. And
Mm-hmm.
so they'll probably they'll probably put some actors down such as users, and then they'll probably draw a block and call that a channel, and they'll probably draw a database, and then they'll add some columns to that database, and more or less they'll say, yeah, this is how I would do based on the first iteration for YouTube, given the short time that we have and the
Okay.
lack of preparation. I'm like, okay. So which part of the system is responsible for generating income, right?
Mm.
And of course, they're not going to design that. But then I say, well, we're in bit. These systems are responsible for generating income or at least sustaining the income that they already have. So is there a module? Like, how would you fit that into the design? Is there a subscription component of this YouTube system? Is there a paid ads component of this YouTube platform? Like, is this YouTube platform really just a database for users, or is this YouTube platform several actors? Not only is it users, but it's also another actor may be marketers, right? There's other platforms for promotions, promo codes, and I kind of constrain them to start thinking about where is the money coming from? What is the profit? If there's profit, what are the expenses? What system manages expenses and raises flags when the expenses are falling out of range? And I really want them to start thinking about the business objectives of why the system is being designed in the first place.
I think I agree, but I think you're conflating two things.
Okay.
I think you're conflating the system design from the product design.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's at the
So,
very beginning. I said this is contrary to startup.
no, but just hear me out, right?
Okay.
The input to system design is the product design. So, if you ask me to design a YouTube, the first question I'll ask you is, what's that? what does it do? How does it work? Right? So as I'm designing my system, I'm asking you questions. Essentially, the answers that you're looking for is what I will be asking you, because those
Right.
are the inputs into my design, right? Like how many users, um, what kind of bandwidth are we expecting? Like what's the operating cost and all of this kind of stuff. Like how can I, what areas can I? Because for example, now if money is not an
The
issue,
majority of them are not going to ask about operating costs. If they ask that, then they're probably going to get hired.
yeah, but no, but you have to ask that, right? Because not every component in your cloud design has the same cost, right? So, for example, if you're using, I guess where you're
I know
going
what
to,
you're
but
saying. I'm telling you, they don't ask questions about
they
cost
don't even ask
analysis.
that
They
one.
don't
Well,
ask it. They
that's
assume
just
everything is free. There are no eight fallacies of distributed computing.
yeah. That's sad then. But circling back to what I said earlier, right? Is I think a better way to phrase it is you could ask them to create like a product design, and then using whatever product design they have outlined, they can now do a system design based on that. But those two are not the same. So for example, if I say, oh, the platform is going to have users will have channels, and each channel can have multiple videos, there should be, whether there should be or there shouldn't be any limits to how long a video should be, right? All those things are product questions and product are part of the product design. Only when that product design is done are those now handed over to the systems designer, who would now say, okay, we need Redis cache here, we need load balancer here, we need this and that and so on and so forth. So I think it would be
What
wrong.
what
So
you're saying, I
okay.
agree,
Hmm.
but that's a mainstream way of. I think what you're explaining and pushback is a mainstream practice. You're familiar with growth hacking, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to kind of put you on the spot and
Okay.
ask you, like, at a high level, what is growth hacking?
So growth hacking is just it's this idea that startups have, especially in Silicon Valley, that to grow as quickly as possible, and then they will figure out like the business model later, right? So when they start, it's all about getting to users, getting engagement, getting all of that stuff.
So, as I understand it, which could be wrong, and I want to learn, Odie, so you got to put me in my place and help me understand the right picture. Is
Yeah,
growth
sure.
hacking, as I understand it, is a blur. It's somewhat of a merge between product being built and marketing. It's integrated into the product to
Mm,
accelerate growth, right? You're engineering the product to to grow customers. It's not a separate component. It's integrated. So you may build some type of marketing campaign strategy into the product to hack um, to basically pull in more revenue or take advantage of whatever user's social network to bring in or execute that network effect, right? And so I know
yeah,
we're going off course, but
yeah. I totally get that, but I feel like it will be unfair. So here's my pushback on it: is that I feel it will be unfair to ask someone to do a systems design for you and then penalize them because they didn't do the product design,
I'm not
right?
penalizing them. I'm challenging them to extend what I asked them to do, which was YouTube, and
Hmm.
then how do you monetize? What components are likely to be considered for monetization of this platform that you just designed, and what would that look like on your design?
Mm.
It's if we're going to hire someone and spend money, and they're senior. Like I thought the constraints for this session is hiring candidates that are at a senior level, and so if they're at a senior level, they must demonstrate like they must be business savvy.
I don't think so. I don't think they have to be business. So hear me out, right? I'm
Okay, you
not
can have someone
saying.
that has a PhD in electrical engineering. Yeah, I get you're saying.
Mhm.
I'm asking for everything, dude.
No, because okay. So one of the things I really loved about my former place of work was, I'm talking about theorem now, was as part of the career, right, when you're talking to your manager and stuff like that, they ask these questions. So inside the company, there are like multiple um, paths an engineer can take, right? So you're a junior engineer today, you become senior, you become maybe a team lead or something like that. One of the options they give to their engineers is to say, what would you prefer? Do you want to go down the road of becoming a manager, being part of the business, or do you want to still stay as being technical and become like an engineering lead and stuff like that? Someone who they bring to do like very, very, high level architecture, someone whose job it is to look into like systems and be able to debug systems that are very, very complex and stuff like that. And it's up to you as an engineer to decide, right, how you want your career to grow. But one of the bad things that I've seen in many companies, right, even the company I was working in Nigeria, was that they cap your growth, right? If you don't want to go into the business aspect of it. So
Mhm.
there is only so high, you can only go so high as a technical person before you are forced to get into a business. So from your perspective, is you're right in the sense that if you're hiring candidates, you want, as especially for a senior engineer, you want them to have like, you want them to be somewhat business savvy. And in fact, that's the whole point of this channel, right? Is to help developers like become more and more business savvy. But at the same time, it's like the you don't do yourself any favors by stunting the group, by not selecting developers who may be technically good, but don't have the kind of business savvy you expect. I think it's something that they can learn. They just need to be cognizant of it, and then they can learn it on the job. That's what I think anyway.
Okay. The last words of learn it on the job is a separate episode because I think that there's an expectation that's mainstream that employers are responsible for teaching you how to do your job, and that's something that I'm not with. But that's a separate episode.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that later. So anyway, I think we've gone on for quite a bit. So yeah, any shout outs?
I think we pumped out. Have we pumped out like 10 episodes yet? We're we're
Yes,
nearing 10.
we're like episode 12 now.
Okay. Well, if review, look at our very first episode and then comment if you think it's getting progressively worse or better. uh,
Yeah.
I think we're at 71 subscribers. It would really be helpful if we could get to 100 and within the next maybe 2 weeks. I had this crazy idea that we were going to try to get 100 subscribers in the first week. That didn't happen. I think we got like 8. But like, comment, subscribe, and we're going to leave a comment when we publish this. And we really value your thoughts and your experience. Yeah, subscribe and share with others because I think there's some value. I hope there's value. That's it.
Yeah, there is definitely. All right. Bye.
See you later.